All right, take two on this. My last attempt at doing this video did not go well. Technical difficulties. Yeah, making sure volume worked. I don't know. Modern technology, right? Well, I wanted to do this one on Drengskapr and a couple of other terms. Effeminacy and Nidinger, or Nidingsverk. And this one took a little while because, to be honest, there really wasn't anything, at least where Drengskapr is concerned, there isn't any. It's very broad, let's put it that way. Drengskapr is made up of two words, basically, as someone explained to me. Dreng, which is a loyal, upright, and steadfast person, and Skapr, which is the quality or nature of. Now, this is not formal doctrine at all. It's cultural expectation, especially for Norse men. It's shaped by stories, the sagas, reputation, and how a person carries himself in daily life. I mean, Drengr describes a good man in high regard, with high bravery, nobility, magnanimity, fair play, respect for others, good stuff. He has the strength to do what is right, sense of personal honor, physical bravery is taken for granted. More important for somebody like that was self-control. Drengr showed equanimity in the face of danger and possible risk of life and limb was unimportant compared to the need to maintain self-respect and the respect of the community, which makes sense. Community was everything. Personal honor was everything. Practical side of imperturbability, unmanly show concern or fear in the face of danger, and was also useless. That was that's the way things were thought. There's a brief example, the reading that I did, chapter 6 of Gunlag's saga. Gunlag's foot was injured and even was infected, but he still wouldn't walk with a limp. And, he said that what was the point? He was still putting on, he sucked it up, basically. I think that's the term I'm looking for, especially when it's questioned not only by the Lord, but other people. Now, Nidinger was complete opposite. That was somebody that was described as a coward, dishonorable man, treacherous oath breaker, killer of kinsmen, and defenseless people. And Nidingsverk, that's basically somebody doing the work of a Nidinger. Especially if for some reason you had somebody else that was following Nidinger. And I do apologize for those that may have a better understanding and working of Icelandic and Norse language. I mean, no disrespect. I'm still learning the pronunciation, so, it's probably going to be off a little bit. Now, the thing with this is not a written code. The Drengskapr, even though it's called a code of conduct, it's not shaped by any religious text. It's not shaped by any formal creed or code in Norse culture. It's very broad-based. And even so, I imagine you probably had those that still, laid it off to the side, so to speak, when circumstances warranted it. mean, for those of you that may not know, I mean, there's a darker side to the society. You know, a lot of raiding, a lot of slave trading. And, I mean, yes, there was human sacrifice, but it was usually either criminals or slaves. To my knowledge, there wasn't any, they didn't sacrifice each other. And I mean, though a lot of us know that the Vikings, you know, they conquered and invaded and promptly ingratiated and settled into other lands. So, I mean, as much as you try to regulate war and conflict, I mean, it's still going to happen. You're still going to have behavior that, you know, we would consider to be barbaric happen, even to this day. So, I love the legends, but don't let legends become history, is what I'm saying. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that I kept seeing Drengskapr, a reinsurgence of it, so to speak. A lot of people on social media mentioning it. And you know what? Like the 9 virtues, it is a tool, but it's not gospel. These are not commandments set down by a God through a church. But if you are looking for a basis to try to change things in your life and to try to live a better life and to live similar to the Norse, then this is good. You know, this is a tool, but it is not. It's a tool, but it's not gospel. If you treat it as gospel, that's one thing. Now, the other term was Effeminacy, which is defined as unmanly behavior, whether it or sexual, social impotence. Women-like behavior. Basically, it's acting submissive in any kind of an encounter. That's kind of another side to the... I gotta look up the pronunciation again. Nidinger. It's kind of on the same side of the coin. For those of you who don't know, Norse was a very male-driven society. Your actions dictated how people thought of you, not to mention you had how you looked to the community. They wanted to see strength. They wanted to see essentially real alpha-like behavior. They wanted strong men leading them. So behavior that was considered unmanly for a man was called out. Like I said, now there were examples that I found. It could be, you know, being submissive, you know, overly submissive to the woman in your life. It could be, some might consider, you know, an aggressive woman, you know, you not being aggressive enough in the bedroom. You know, but now it's the 21st century, so I'll leave your imaginations to that one. The other thing was being a male, I don't know the term off the top of my head, but being a male vulva, practicing Sadir. That form of magic to the Norse was considered for women only. It was a taboo for a man to practice it. Now, that is not to say that there weren't men that practiced it, but they were usually shunned or outcast. And that's usually what would happen with somebody that was declared an effeminate male or engaging in some kind of Effeminacy behavior. Could be insulted, could be shunned, depending on the behavior, whether it was Effeminacy or it was Nidinger. Yeah, you could be called out for it. There were cases of, one-on-one battles to defend your honor. So, and yeah, it could, but answering these kind of charges publicly seemed to depend on where you were living. So, it could be just a matter of, verbal sparring. But yeah, there were cases you were breaking out the axes and the shields. And you were going to go until one of you dropped permanently. So, yeah, those kind of blood feuds and duels happened a lot. But as the Viking Age progressed and there was more laws passed, and like certain aspects, certain Norse countries, they started to outlaw it as it became, quote unquote, more civilized. But that part's another subject for another day, and I should probably, if anyone ever responds to me, wants to go more into the insults and the duels, I could do that, definitely. I think that deserves its own video. So, the other thing about the Effeminacy, yes, if you were, I know we see the jokes online about soy boys and betas and stuff like that. Yeah, that kind of behavior will probably get you called out. I hate to say it. Times change, I get that. And I'm not overly judgmental, and I'm not overly, rigid about certain things. Because I recognize that we're living in the 21st century, and we're not living in the Viking Age. I think the reason I'm bringing this up is the fact that I know some people, they look to pagan faiths because mainstream religion tends to have it hardwired in their text about these kinds of behaviors. And yes, I do mean the same-sex relationships, transgenderism. Look, this is not a reflection on me. Anybody that knows me knows that I am very open-minded, but back then, yes, that kind of behavior would get you into trouble. So, just something to keep in mind, because there are some that follow this path that, would probably not want you around because of those behaviors. There's nothing in the sagas or the Have 'em all that say, prohibits it, but culturally there was an expectation. I don't bring up the women because there really isn't a lot of records on that kind of stuff for women, that kind of behavior, what those expectations were. They had a lot more rights pre-Christianity in terms of initiating divorce, having protections against abusive husbands, being allowed to own livestock, land, run businesses. And yes, they could probably, it's conceivable that, yeah, they could be hold political office to some extent. I don't think they could be, I don't know if how far that could go in terms of, ruling a country, but in terms of something small, sure, I believe that. Not to mention, do I, and bringing up women, do I think that this is a hot topic debate about shield maidens? Yes, I think they existed. But in terms of the numbers, that's a different story. I'm not going to go more into that. I can always save that for another video at another time. So my point is, Yes, there were expectations of behavior. You deviated out of that, and I'm talking to the men. Back then, you would have to answer for them. The severity, it depends. A lot of times, sometimes these punishments were, especially if it was family against family, you know, yes, there were blood feuds. I know Norway had a history of blood feuds, but sometimes they could settle matters between the families without involving any kind of government officials. And I know fines and financial arrangements were made, you know, to try to keep things from escalating too far, you know. But there was a lot of variation. Depends on what was agreed upon. It depends on the severity of the offense, that kind of thing. And not just behavior, but also, well, yeah, behavior, crimes, that kind of thing. Norse society back then was very multifaceted and very deep, deeper than most people realize. So, Drengskapr, I'm still having trouble with that one. Nidingsverk, or Nidinger, and Effeminacy. Hopefully I've at least defined it, explained things a little better. You know, if people want to get in contact with me, I'm not hard to find. If you have questions, I could try to answer them. I appreciate your patience for this next video. Like I said, had some delays, technical setbacks yesterday, so I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.